Hello, we are now live. It is Friday morning at 10 a.m. and you are here for Neurodiversity Time. Every Friday we go live. Good Friday today. Many people will be off, maybe having their scrambled eggs and salmon or whatever else you like to have in the morning, some toast, some tea. I've got a coffee. We welcome all and everyone to join in the debate, or you can catch up on your podcasting channel of choice. People are already coming in. Michael, hello from Bristol. Hello from Cheshire. Amanda, hello from, where are you today? In Wales?
Wales. I'm in Wales. It's sunny. The daffodils are out. All my tulips are coming out too quickly. They're coming out.
I love them. We've got a load out our front garden. Nothing makes me feel like I'm at home in Wales than some daffodils at this time of year. Although I'm not in Wales.
I'll send you
I have daffodils on my desk.
There we go.
Right, love you, Praveen. That's brilliant. So we have a special guest today. We're going to get into some fantastic topics. There's some interesting stuff going on in the news, but we have a brilliant guest today, Praveen, who is kindly, after getting involved, engaged in last week's session, said he would come on, which I jumped at. I was like, yes. So Praveen, would you like to give the audience an introduction into who you are, what you do, and why you're joining us today?
Yes, sure. Thank you very much, Theo. It's a real pleasure to be with you and Professor Amanda Kirby, because you are two people I really look up to in the neurodiversity movement. And so I'm Praveen Kolluguri. I'm based in London, and for my day job, I'm a communications manager for BT. And the things I do and why I'm involved or wanted to chat is that I'm neurodiverse myself. I have ADHD and autism, and I'm a co-chair of the disabled network at BT called Able To. And outside work, I'm an activist. So I am really interested to talk to people about the impact of race, class, culture on neurodiversity movement. And that's what I commented on last week. And I thought, hey, I'll just message you and see if you're interested to talk about it, and we can explore it a bit further.
That is amazing. Thank you. So I have something really that I'm noticing at the moment, that I've been noticing for a while now, is there are many more voices in the neurodiversity movement, or whatever you want to define it, right? People who want to talk about neurodiversity in the places they work or in their personal space, where there's a lot more activity. Therefore, there's a lot greater representation than there was before. However, I still see people posting about lack of representation, because there is, right? It's still like on a scale, there is still a lack. We still need many, many more voices to be heard. But I wonder whether and part of the conversation, I guess, today is how to get those voices heard that are there, are talking, but for whatever reason, they're not being seen. And therefore, there's the feeling that then there is an even greater lack of visibility. And I've tried to do some of this myself. Some work, some don't. Try and give people a platform, try and get people talking. It's not always easy, right? And then if I'm bringing somebody to my space, that may still mean they're not being seen in the spaces where they're most needed, right? Where people feel like they have a lack of representation. I'm just throwing out some ideas about Amanda, what do you think about this at the moment from what you're seeing?
I think it's a conversation that we really need to keep having, and we need to be having perhaps uncomfortable conversations about systems and processes that exclude people, and I think that the neurodiversity chat sometimes can be very much about those who can shout loud, are already there, are known, are in jobs, and it can be quite glorified, and the people that talk can be the ones who've got a voice. And that is incredibly important, that we ensure that happens. What we've got to do as well all the time is be highly critical of who's not there, and who's being excluded by our processes and practices, who's excluded because there is inequitable provision, right? That the way we present things is in a social cultural framework that works in a system that works for some people far better than others, and always has done, and I think we've got to keep having uncomfortable conversations to challenge ourselves. I really do. I go to bed at night and I worry about these things. I really genuinely do, about our systems and processes are actually excluding people, and actively doing so, really.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree that you do it, Amanda, because I've seen some of the research that you have done about carcerality and the impact of it, and who bears the brunt of being neurodivergent and not getting the support. So yeah, I think I agree with, like, as you say, Theo, like, I mean, yeah, these are quite sanitized spaces that we have currently, and the people with privilege can come and talk about their conditions without worrying about the stigma, or just talk about it generally, because like, I mean, as you know, like, I mean, 0.5% people in the UK who are neurodivergent are officially diagnosed, so it's a privilege to be diagnosed. And also, I have heard another stat recently, which is about 75% of autistic people who are employed are white males. So it kind of shows that the stigma and the support are not flowing through to all parts of society. And from where I stand, I think there should be a critical analysis of the neurodiversity movement, from caste, class, race, and angle, and we should take some learnings from it on what needs to be done there. And I have a few hypotheses from my lived experience that I think can help this happen in a way. So do you want me to talk about it?
Yeah, please do.
So yeah, like, I mean, so right. So I think culture is the first one, right? Like, I mean, when I was growing up in India, like, I mean, even now, right? Like, I mean, there is no concept of neurodevelopmental condition. So everyone uh, who like goes through the same schooling process, and sometimes my quirks as a child were seen as culturally acceptable because I was in my own world, and because I was not a troublemaker at that, I was fine. Like, I mean, I was like, I mean, my parents who didn't seek any help as such. And the thing is, I mean, I'm first generation of people in my family who got formal education as well. So yeah, so there is another element there. But anyways, so I think there is we need to understand the cultural differences on how some of these conditions are diagnosed as well, because it's like, I mean, if these conditions are diagnosed based on social interaction, social imagination, and communication, the what we how we define them change from culture to culture. So, but however, that doesn't mean that that's not there. But I think the diagnosis process needs to be locally changed in a way that takes into account the cultural differences. And I think, I mean, if I move countries, like, I mean, as I have done, it doesn't mean that I automatically absorb the culture and define and change it. So I think that should happen in a way. And when I mean, because of my undiagnosed condition, or I mean, teenage was a mess. I mean, I was in bad company, and I think I was like, I mean, being here and talking to you is an accident, because I have seen a lot of my friends who I know for sure needed some support, didn't get the support, and they were physically beaten in schools, which happened at that time. It doesn't happen now, but even now, I mean, the kids who need additional support are given something called as private tuitions, and they're still beaten up if they show challenging conditions. And some people have not made it because they found it too hard. So some of my friends who like, I mean, are not here anymore. So yeah, so it's really interesting. And I think there is other thing as well, right? Like, I mean, things relating to culture which need to be more researched into, because I come from India. So the caste is a big thing, and it's a social hierarchy of how communities are organized. But the way the caste system works is operates is that it is a closed community, and we know that there is gene bias, like genetic bias in
Sure.
neurodiversity, and like, I mean, what is the impact of caste? Because it's something called as endogamy, which happens when caste rules are preserved, which is where you marry within a community, and there are some communities that I'm part of where marrying your cousins is okay. So if so yeah, like, I mean, all of this is some topic that we need to discuss, and I have had challenge where I was trying to explain my understanding based on my experience, and I did a qualification recently about autism, and trying to explain this to my friends and family who don't speak English, and I'm struggling big time because there are no terms to explain it. So when the terms don't exist, their understanding was like, yes, just yesterday I was speaking to a friend of mine, my best friend of mine, who I know is very similar to me, and he was explaining how his child is finding really hard in the school because he was getting into fights and everything. And I was trying to explain it to him that you should try and get help for him and try to explain some of the things. And he was like, I couldn't explain it to him in a way he understood, because I was trying to do it in my mother tongue, which is Telugu. And he said, these type of things don't exist. So like, okay, so I'm now trying to write it.
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
I think the language, we use certain words and we describe them in a certain way to have a certain meaning, and we ascribe that meaning in a way that has got cultural norms. So that when we're looking at and defining autism, we're defining it in a Western framing of what the cultural norms in that setting are. And you're absolutely right, Praveen. I reminded me, a few years ago, I supervised a girl who was doing a PhD around autism and in parents. She was working in Pakistan, and she was traveling, amazingly brilliant woman who was going on her own, traveling all the way around Pakistan. And there were at the time, very few parent support groups across Pakistan at all, And she started to develop a handout, which was developed and translated. I've got it. So if anybody wants it and wants to translate it and amend it, it's in Urdu, and we can translate it into other languages as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the tasks which I took away, because I'm like solution. I'm like, I need to be able to talk to my friends about certain conditions in Telugu, and I'm trying to do it in other languages as well. And the thing is, like, I mean, some of the translations exist, but it means something different. So autism, when I looked at in Telugu, it's called as manovyadi, which means that it's a mental problem, is a literal translation of it. And I'm like, that's not it though. Like, I mean,
well, I'd be interested to do that with you. And that was a few years ago. So it'd be interesting to look at what we wrote then, right? And how we're thinking and framing now, because language changes over time and understanding. I come from a Jewish background where kids were bar mitzvahed, at 13, right? So I remember when my son was being bar mitzvahed, and he was standing there. We had to have the translation in sort of scribe form, and I thought he was greeting people at the door, and I thought he was going to do a runner at any point. But that was an expectation that he would be able to do something that at the time people just didn't understand, right? Why that might be different, or why might that be difficult. So I think you're right. We've got to have conversations, which is, what does that mean in the context of our lives here, wherever we are? What's different? But it is about education as well, because if you've got lack of education and the system requires you to be literate to get the help, if you're not literate, you can't get the help. Well, that goes back to educational strata, doesn't it, as well? That those who are the white male, often it's because they've had parents who are educated to understand a system, so they've got the help and support, and so they get the advantage and they get going in the workplace.
Yeah, and I think since I've spoken out, like, I mean, about my condition, or in at my work, I have had people who are brown who have reached out to me to say, It's good to see you talking about your conditions. I never thought that in these spaces, I could come in and participate. And also, I've been having conversations with some people who are talking about how they know that their kids need the support, but they think that their partner would not understand or would not want that label on that child as well. So I think it's a challenge which we are trying to face, like, I mean, address at BT as well, where we know that I mean, it's disability and neurodiversity. So more than 50% of our staff who are declared disabled are work in the front line. So all the work that we do, which is about creating safe spaces and psychological safety and support, are hosted online. And when you're working in frontline roles, you don't have the privilege of logging off and looking at some other system where you can do it. So as a communications manager, I've come in and I've worked with my co-chair, and we have come to a plan that we actually have to go there where people are. So we are trying to go identify big spaces, and we're talking to the unions, we're talking to the local like offices where people are based, to say we'll come and talk to you about the rights and the and also the conversation and the support that is available with various angles. And also, like, I mean, when we are trying to get people to participate as well, it's only certain kind of people who are coming in to volunteer as well. So I had to look at names of people who have talked about it in the past or engaged with that and said, hey, like, I mean, we would really, like, I mean, benefit from your expertise, and why don't you come and work with us? And the reaction has been fantastic, because they think that they could actually add value, but this is volunteer space, so anyone can do it if they have anything good to say or good to, like, a new perspective to bring. So yeah.
But at that point, sorry, Theo, just at the point of reaching out. Sorry, I'll shut up.
No. I'm just thinking about the workplace then, Praveen. What, on the basis of the challenges, maybe about community, about understanding, misunderstanding, language, all of these things. What's your view then on what the role of the company has to play in supporting individuals? Because I've had somebody come up to me in the past and whisper to me, Theo, I'm dyslexic, and I can't have this conversation with my family because it is seen as something that defines me as being broken, and I should be a doctor or a dentist and not in finance. And I don't know whether I should be in finance because I'm dyslexic and I struggle with the whole. So, like, it's like, whoa. So on that basis, she can't go to her community, her family, because at the moment that is not a route for her. So I'm just thinking about then, therefore, the role you're playing and all the things you were just discussing. That potentially is hugely powerful and impactful. Do you see it that way, or do you think community? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think totally. I think, like, I mean, talking about it within the community is great. Like, I mean, how you get to that community can be different, because in some parts, as you said, you will meet resistance because they would see that is a deviance from what the cultural expectations of what a successful person is. So you will need to reach them in a different way, through companies or through organizations and unions or somewhere else, and talk about it in a way. Because I think I was one of those people who was, like, I mean, in our community, right? Like, I mean, when I was growing up, everyone had to be an engineer or a doctor. Like, I mean, our state produces like about 200,000 engineers every year, but not all people are made for engineering. Certainly, I wasn't made for engineering. I was so glad that I could just move to, like, something else. Like, I mean, after, because I thought this was not for me. But not many people have that chance of doing it and struggle through it and don't finish education as well. So I think, like, I mean, we have to go to the places where they are at, and it could be, I mean, I don't want to go down the religious route as well, because a lot of times the conversations around ethnic minorities in this country kind of revolves around, like, I mean, we want to get to the ethnic minorities, let's speak to the religious leaders as such, because that's another way where the patriarchy comes into play, where you're like, who are you talking to why are they the community leaders? So you need to go into spaces where women are, where people who organize culturally in different ways are, like, I mean, cricket clubs, I don't know, like, I mean, or some other organizing groups which exist, and informal communities that exist, and go and talk to them. So I'm talking to, I mean, because my interest lies in anti-caste work as well, so I'm talking to the head of the Anti-Caste Discrimination Alliance to say, hey, I really want to talk to our community, which are caste oppressed communities in the UK, to raise awareness of neurodiversity, because there again, like, even in the diaspora, if you talk about Indians or subcontinent, the people who you see at the top are the people who are quite privileged themselves. So they do get the support, and they do get it. So where you then need to look at the caste class and race angle and also gender lens to it, and see, actually, to reach to the people who actually need support, we need to be in spaces where we can't reach in the current space, like current way we are talking.
I think that's so important, Praveen, though, is that we often go back to the spaces where people talking already loudly, and actually those by definition are often excluding the people who don't know that's happening because they can't get through the door, and in the workplace, actually having those conversations, even one-to-one conversations, can be really powerful, because you can feel quite isolated, I think, do you know what I mean? You're starting to have those conversations, and you're going to your communities, our communities, where maybe those words haven't been spoken, and it's not, so different experiences. Having allies to talk to informally can be incredibly helpful, can't it? I think that's important, and not going back to the places we always go. It's easy, because you say the patriarchy and the way it's been designed is we go back to those who already know and have got a voice. And there's a reason why they've got a voice and they know that we keep going in that little circle, don't we? So it's interesting to say.
Well, just thinking about this, right? There's a lot of comments, globalization, right? The neurodiversity, all of a sudden it's a global topic, where actually I feel when I first sat about looking at this, it felt very kind of nuanced to its set areas, right? The people talking about it. Okay, Amanda will know better than I, because she's been in this space much longer than me. But certainly I felt like
I'm old there.
No, just experienced, darling, experienced. But so now I'm seeing a lot of voices. So, for example, somebody who may be in the Philippines, maybe in India, maybe in Alaska, I don't know where, right? But calling out the fact you do not understand what it is like to be where we are, where I am, or what from all the way over there in Wales or in England, whatever. Now, I'm mindful of that fact, but also where is the balance? Because can we positively influence the future of neurodiversity within those places from where we are, or should we not even be should we be stepping away? How do we get the balance of influencing to change the world for the better without pushing voices down, whether
or just considering what is right from a Western framing,
and I think we need to, there are neurodiverse movements starting in different parts of the world, and we need to talk to them, understanding the challenges. And I think it's good that we shouldn't be talking from it like from an imperialist kind of way, where it's like, oh yeah, we do it in the West and this works for us, so we should take our idea and go with it. But we need to collaborate with them and try and understand where are the things, where issues where they are seeing and what we are seeing, and have a chat, because there are loads of things which we will learn, because I think one thing which we need to identify as well, like the role of capitalism in making things difficult for us, because we experience all these sensory overloads because we are forced to be in boxes of moving trains and be in offices where there are hundreds of people packed in small spaces where everyone is talking. So I think there are some things which we can learn from indigenous cultures as well, where they might have better ways of dealing with it, which we haven't considered with being close to the nature. A lot of people do it, right? Like, I mean, we are all going for, as soon as we hit the weekend, we are like, yeah, I'm off to the forest, or I'm off to the hills, or I'm off to the river. So, yeah, so I think we need to have those conversations, but also I think we should share the knowledge that we have, because there has been research which is being done here, which hasn't happened. So we should share the learnings and try to get people to understand some of it as well. So it should be a two-way movement. It shouldn't be just us trying to say, like, I mean, or them, like, or the other way around. So yeah,
I think
the key is we need to keep talking to our colleagues and comrades elsewhere, and we need to make sure that we are talking to everyone, not just the people at the top, but the mums and the parents or the carers who are struggling to get that support, because in India currently, like, the schooling system doesn't have special education needs, and I think that's where if I can do anything, I want to get to that spaces where I can influence that, because people are going through. I mean, I know families and cousins who I know could do with additional support, and then not getting it, and I think that's where I think we can make the biggest difference, is to try and influence policy and speak to those people in those spaces.
And I think internationally, globally, we can share information that is a starting point for a discussion. It's a starting point to say this may not be right. I think that's very important. Well, I think we need to be humble in the sense of this may be wrong, but some of this might be okay to discuss, and there might be things like getting dressed or feeding or eating. There may be some common threads here that are innate to all of us that we can learn about and learn from each other. And I think you're right, Praveen. It's only when we share information. Oh my goodness, I learn something every day, every conversation. Do you know what I mean? And you've got to be humble to go, what we're doing isn't always right.
You know? Well, it's not been, has it? We've got it wrong.
It hasn't been
wrong. We didn't include the voices of the people we were talking about in the research. We followed the medical paradigm. We didn't consider human feelings and emotions. You know, all of these things we left out. And Roxy, my poodle, agrees. She's trying to get in to have her two but, you know, this is the reality. And this is what I think about, you know, all of this evidence and information. World leaders in health and healthcare and evidence-based research in the healthcare system in the UK. Yes, but we got, in many respects, I feel we got it wrong. And that is another kind of thing about, oh, wow, like, how do we go back on, there may be so many countries, cultures that may be following the evidence base that we provided. And that is a little bit uncomfortable.
Well, it's an interesting one, is sort of what is evidence, right? And what is knowledge and what is truth? And I think that we have to remain critical in our reflection of what we thought. You know, you think about some of the psychiatric classification systems that existed 20, 30, 50 years ago. We go, what? We sent people to mental health institutions because they were unmarried mothers, right? Okay, that was a classification. So we can't turn back time.
And not that long ago.
Oh, I remember there was a local mental hospital in Cardiff, right? And there was a woman there that had been there for 30 years, still wandering around. It was in the 1980s. She'd been there for 30, 40 years, and she'd been an unmarried mother, right? Now, that's not that long ago. That's not that long ago. So we can only go, we continually will get it wrong. I guarantee, that's the only thing I can guarantee, that we'll continue to get it wrong. And I think that's one of the things from a global perspective, if anything, is that we can acknowledge that and challenge it and live with our discomfort and not be arrogant about it. I get things wrong every day. Every day. I get more things wrong than I get right, I think, probably.
Brilliant. Well, we're coming to the close. I feel like this topic, we could literally like go boom for this topic, and that's why I was so pleased when Praveen, you reached out and said you'd like to come on and start the conversation, because I think there's a whole series that Amanda and I will do now. Maybe once a month we can start to go into different layers and facets of this talk. So I think it's really important. And I do think the lack of visibility, representation, visibility is the big one, I think, is trying to get
voice from different communities. You know, I think that's what we've really got to make sure, that not just the loud voices speak.
So thank you so much. Especially here, it's a bank holiday today. So for anybody who attended live, very much appreciate you giving up your time. Praveen, really appreciate you giving up your time. And Amanda, as always.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having this.
Amazing. So have an incredible weekend if you can. And we look forward to seeing you again, same time next Friday. Of course, you can catch up on your podcast host of choice, because I'm now sharing it via those, or on the different platforms, Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Watch it live, or you can watch it on rewind on any of those channels. And again, thank you for those who've got involved. We do like the chat function, so please do leave messages even after the event. We still pick them up. And come and join our group on LinkedIn, NEURODIVERSI-TEA Time. It's growing. It's starting to engage. I think this is going to be the lovely place where we can chat through the week that can inform some of the conversations that we have at the end of the week.
And tell us what you want to discuss.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.